Good? Let's go. That is so sick. This episode reveals everything about the business behind the Auckland FC. How many tickets have we sold?
18,287.
Unreal.
Let's go.
Congratulations.
It's a capital heavy project. You know, you're not going to see upside for a long time when you enter into it. To be fair, there was a lot of people who were like, we don't believe you, we don't think you're going to do it, we'll pass on this first round. And we're like, okay, fine.
It's going to be more expensive when
when you
next
come
year.
back.
Have they now called?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's been a few of them. So
interesting.
Any good owner expects that year 1 and year 2 is going to probably be a loss leader. Year 3 we'd like to start to be on break even.
The value creation is built up within the club, but that value is only realised if you sell. It's a great day for footy and to go behind the scenes of the business behind the Auckland Football Club, including the executives and investors backing the team and building an entertainment empire. Auckland FC is majority owned by American businessman Bill Foley, with the remainder shared by a stacked syndicate, such as Zuru co-founder Anna Mowbray, ex-All Black Ali Williams, NBA superstar Stephen Adams, and former All Whites, including Allbirds co-founder Tim Brown. They've picked Nick Becker to lead the club and convert a city to support their team. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too, Madison.
This has been such a fun episode to put together. Really appreciate you opening the doors for us and letting us in.
Well, you got a day out at the football. What more could you ask for?
Honestly, with a free ticket, I was a happy woman. Look, let's start at the very beginning. Take me right to the idea of creating an Auckland Football Club.
Sure.
Who had the idea? How did it come to fruition? And where did you come in?
Yeah, sure. So I guess one quick step back, but before that is a little bit of my journey. So I grew up here in Auckland. I think it's an important bit to the narrative. But left 20 years ago. So 2003, I went over to the UK. I started working in football when I got to London. I worked with a couple of Premier League clubs. The last one was Manchester City, and then Manchester City expanded into City Football Group and started acquiring clubs around the world. They brought a club in Melbourne. We are getting back to your question. They brought a club in Melbourne called Melbourne Heart and turned it into Melbourne City, and I joined that in about 2015-16 to help run that club. So I'd spent 8 years in Melbourne. I really understood the A-League. I saw all the potential in football in this region. Football's a global sport, and this is the region where it's sort of like the last place on the planet where football plays second or third fiddle to other codes. But the potential's there, right? The participation numbers, the fact that footballers are just a global beast, the most popular sport in the world. It's only a matter of time. It's not like it's when, not if. And so I was working in Melbourne. I finished up with City Football Group. I had my own consultancy, and I got a phone call one day to have a chat with Bill Foley, who was looking to come in to Auckland and take the licence. Bill arrived relatively late in the process. I think the A-League had been looking at Auckland or another team in New Zealand for a while as an expansion option. There'd been a couple of other bids kind of being pulled together. Actually, owners who joined the club in terms of Anna Mowbray and also Tim Brown were parts of other bids that ultimately ended up coming in on ours. But taking back to that conversation, Bill called me. It was actually Bill's right-hand man, a guy called Ryan Caswell, and I had a half-hour catch-up in the diary, and I sort of thought I'll just give him a kind of rundown on me and a quick chat, and that'll be that. I get on the call, Ryan says hi, he says Bill's joining. An hour and a half later, I was truly inspired about what this man wanted to do in the region, his vision for the football club, his reasons for wanting to invest in New Zealand, and very much around, he wanted a licence for a football club in Auckland, didn't want one anywhere else, wasn't interested in if there was one available in Australia, it had to be in Auckland. And the reason for that is he's been investing in New Zealand, Bill's been investing in New Zealand for over 20 years, has hospitality and wineries here already, and he wanted to add into his kind of a football portfolio, which he's got. He fully owns AFC Bournemouth in the Premier League, part owner of Hibs in the Scottish Premier League, FC Lorient in the French League, and various other kind of fingers in sporting pies around the world. He also has the Vegas Golden Knights ice hockey franchise in the great city of Vegas as well.
Great city.
So really interesting guy, really fascinating, really passionate, super ambitious, incredibly successful businessman, and just having the time to talk to him about his vision. His belief genuinely is that there's a lot of talent down here, and how do we actually be successful first in this region and be one of the top Australasian teams, but then what are the pathways that we can take out of here, take real talent from New Zealand or from across New Zealand and Australia, and then move them through our talent pathways into other leagues around Europe or maybe into the US.
I'm definitely keen to talk to you about talent transfers and how that all looks financially, but there was this idea and inspiration from Bill. He sold you on it. But how has the demand and fandom actually come to fruition? Has it undersold, met, or well exceeded your expectations?
It's definitely exceeding expectations, without a doubt. It's been a great first season. We're really happy with where we are right now. We obviously still have a lot to do, but I think the conditions were all here, and we looked into this. So the due diligence was done, and the growth of football just at a certain age and the participation of it in the country has been amazing. Shown by not only there's 72 clubs around Auckland which have over 100,000 people registered in it. Over half of those are young boys and girls. So you've got this huge audience who are absolutely passionate about the game here, and that's taken off. Like for me, that was the one bit that blew me away the most. Returning here after 20 years abroad, the one comparison I use is Western Springs Football Club is huge. It's got over, my little 5-year-old plays there. It's got over 3,000 kids registered there. Right next door is Ponsonby Rugby Club, one of the great local rugby clubs globally, an iconic club. And probably in 2003 when I left, I'm making these numbers up, but it's probably they probably had a couple of thousand kids playing there, right? Playing rugby. Now it's 400, 500, 600, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's completely flipped, and you see that all across Auckland. And so that was a really exciting piece to it. I think the other part is, we created an instant rivalry with Wellington, the other professional game. So there was a feeling in Auckland that there was a certain kind of, they wanted that rivalry back. The old rivalries of a Ramfurly Shield or something like that in rugby, New Zealand's number one game, blah, 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 have disappeared. They're not there anymore. So it was sort of, Aucklanders were hanging out for something to make them proud, to be proud of. And also when you get to kind of wind up the biggest city close to you, why not? It's brilliant.
It's such an obvious idea. The audience was there. They were clearly underserved, as you say, specifically in Auckland. Why had no one done that? Was it purely a lack of capital, not a lack of desire or wanting to do it?
It's an interesting, to be honest, my take on it is 17 years ago that was they've had the Kings, they've had the Knights. In Auckland, they haven't worked out well, as many opposition fans like to remind us. And I think the appetite for actually somebody investing into it's a capital heavy project, right? You actually have to have a long-term vision. You have to understand how to make it first financially sustainable, and then you're not going to see upside for a long time when you enter into it. So New Zealand's not a huge country. I just don't think there are that many people there who are kind of willing to take the risk, nor had that kind of experience or vision that our ownership group do.
Are you comfortable telling me how much the initial upfront capital injection was from Bill and other investors? Even ballpark would be good.
I think there's a stuff that's publicly available. Like the kind of the APL license. They've been quite open in terms of they valued it at the time that we came in around the Aussie $20 million mark. The exact numbers that we paid and the exact capital that we've cut them in, I won't mention, but it is a serious investment.
To see where investments have been made, from infrastructure to the fan experience, I wanted to show you every element, from the family friendly.
You mind if I give you a pat, Chuggy, while you're having a munch? Who would have thought a petting zoo at a stadium?
To the major football fanatics. But first, I had to fit in.
What do we reckon? Good? Let's do it.
No, we've been to every, all but one home game. Yeah, there's a massive fan base of football in New Zealand.
So what brought you here?
This one's birthday present.
Happy birthday! Yeah. Did you get the t-shirt and did you all get t-shirts as part of the birthday present too? Mm-hmm. Nice to meet you guys. Happy birthday. You'll see this on YouTube.
The stadium is set up for adults too.
My strong belief is you build a football club around two key people, right? There's your fan, and you put them at the middle, at the heart of every single decision you have. You know, if you don't have a fan, you've got empty stadiums, you've got no sponsors, you've got no broadcast deal, you've got nobody buying tickets, you've got nobody buying your merch. So you have to really genuinely put your fan at the heart of all your decision making, and you create and build a club around that, and you keep them engaged, and you keep them focused. So you think about it as, what would I do if I was the fan? And then you've got your player, right? It's a high performance club, you know, it's a high performance sport, and the club needs to be built around them because the fans are coming to watch the players, right? So these are your two kind of core kind of fundamentals to think about when you're starting it. And then you need a plan. You need a business plan like any other business. So we looked at it like the number one thing that we want to do is connect with the community. You know, I've worked at other football clubs previously in my career where there hasn't been a strong connection with the community, and as soon as things start to go bad, which they always do with sport, it's a roller coaster, it's up and down. Your fans just desert you and they don't come back. So the number one piece for us was to embed ourselves into the community of Auckland, and not just the football community. It was more broadly, actually, you know, you look at Auckland now, it's the most multicultural city in the world. So, you know, who are these groups of people who football, being the biggest sport in the world, is naturally they're going to gravitate towards it. So we found, like, you know, there's a cohort of Fijian Indians who have 50 teams and they play 2 tournaments twice a year. Like, it's awesome, you know, and all those little parts of Auckland that you didn't actually know but you knew they would come together and support you. We just made ourselves super inclusive and open to them.
I do want to talk to you about Grassroots clubs, so we definitely will get to that and what the AFC is doing differently, it seems, in that area. But on that investment split, was that like 50% spent on fandom? Was that 50% spent on players, or was it more like 90% players?
Probably.
Marketing and fans?
Well, no, yeah, it's the next phase, and what we had to do was get the right people, right? So I think the kind of, you know, having a understanding of the core business of a football club, which is the fans and the players, and knowing that that's going to drive a lot of your ultimately your revenue, and then having a vision, knowing what you want to do and who you want to be, secondly, and then thirdly, having the right people to do that, right? So we set about, so in terms of the split, it was quite easy. We got a great football director in, someone who's very experienced, understands the game, had been a player, has been a football director at other clubs across this region, and we got a great coach, and so someone who'd won it as a player, they'd won it as assistant coach, and then they'd won it as a head coach themselves. So that was Terry McFlynn in terms of the football director, and Steve Corica, the coach. And you let them go and kind of come back and say, this is the players that I want. And we had a group of people who made the decisions on the players. They were the experts in terms of they knew the player, they knew the style of football they wanted to play, they knew the players, how they fitted in, they understood the cap model in Australia. So we've got there's a $2.6 million cap for all teams. We have some exemptions coming in as a new team, so ours is actually a $3 million cap. Then there's 4 spots outside of that cap. So you've got 2 marquees that there's no cap on their salary, and 2 they're called designated players, which have to be between 400 and 600k in terms of a salary band. So we'll call them 500k average. So you're sort of looking at that as your spending squad budget and the type of player that are coming. They come to us. We make sure that the data's been done, the background's been checked. You know, are they a good person? What's their salary? Does it fit into our cap? We look at the actual business side of it all. We're not sitting there going, can he play right wing? You know, like, has he got a good shot? Is he defensively? Like, that's their job. They're the experts in it. We don't want to be influencing that. You know, we ultimately want them to kind of live and die by the decisions they make there. So your football piece, it sort of gets done in that sense. It's quite easy. The big and the hardest job was everything else, right? So you're right. We had to grow a fan base, so we started by connecting with the community, going into local clubs, and I know we'll touch on that in a sec, but there's a couple of initiatives in there that worked really well, which we can talk to. Selling commercial sponsorships, and that's the one which was probably the hardest. You know, like there's 3 things that were really hard for us. We announced the club we started this in January, we announced the name of the club in March, and we played our first game in October. So time was very much against us, and we had to sprint that whole way. So that was one of them. Actually, facilities in Auckland. I'd been living in Melbourne for 8 years, and prior to that in the UK, where there's a model of, well, certainly in the UK, it's mainly private, some public facilities. Australia, it's very good at public facilities. They're amazing. Their investment in sport facilities is second to none. And then you come to little old New Zealand, and there's
Not so good.
Not so good at all. So actually finding somewhere to play, Go Media worked for us really well. Somewhere to train, that was really hard, really difficult, but we actually got a really good solution in the end with North Harbour. And then the third one was actually getting those commercial partnerships. So the time that we had to do it, which was little to none, trying to find a base and a home, and then trying to actually get commercial partners to go, these guys are the real deal. We believe what they're saying. We were selling them a dream. You know, we were sitting in front of them going, we've never lost a game.
Because you hadn't played one.
We hadn't played a game, exactly.
You didn't have a product really. You were just selling them a vision.
Yeah, we were. And so we had to, in the initial stage, we had to take a kind of knockdown on what we valued our product at, and we had to sell, our key assets for less money than we wanted to, and we had conversations with all of them saying, we will do this deal with you now, but in 12 months' time, we're going to have another conversation because we will be a successful club. We will have good crowds. We will be competitive on the pitch. And we talked to who we were as a club and what we wanted to achieve and our ambitions. We said from the start, I mentioned a few times, community was the number one focus for us. We wanted to create youth pathways for the young talented Kiwis, boys and girls, to go through the model into our teams and then hopefully abroad into bigger leagues. And we wanted to kind of like rethink and kind of create an entertaining atmosphere and an exciting match day. So what did our match day look like? How was it different to every other sport in New Zealand? And then how did that flow into our kind of content through our social channels and what we put on? So that all became, we'd sit in front of people and to be fair, there was a lot of people who were like, we don't believe you. We don't think you're going to do it. We'll pass on this first round. And we're like, okay, fine.
It's going to be more expensive.
When you come back.
Have they now called?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's been a few of them. So
interesting.
Yeah, and then the ones that could see it and understood it and actually bought into it, they're going to be with us for a long time. They are, if you're a fundamental, there from the start, you tend to stay on, and they're the ones who feel like they've really, they backed the winner.
And this is where things start to escalate. If you haven't heard of the hardcore AFC fan club, The Port, you have now. The AFC team told me to get stuck in, and it'd be rude not to, right?
They named themselves The Port. I think The Port's a great name. They decided to call themselves The Port, obviously the Port of Auckland. The Port representing where everyone comes together. They arrive through the Port, which I thought was a really nice position for a fan and fully inclusive and aligned who we wanted to be as a club, as fully open to all of Auckland. And that's very much how we had landed on our name as Auckland FC, by sort of looking at the market and going, A, we wanted a traditional football club name. B, we wanted to be a club for all of Auckland, and having Auckland in the name, you look at other sports teams in the city, and there's the New Zealand Warriors or the New Zealand Breakers, the Auckland Blues, but everyone calls them the Blues, and so suddenly there's like, hold on, nobody really calls themselves Auckland here, so it's like a bit of an opportunity for us, and likewise with the Port guys, we just worked closely with them to. We put on events that we introduced them to players. They met the coach, they met Terry. Arun came down and met them, which was all amazing experiences for them. But they kind of got to sit down, listen to us, talk to us about what they wanted to see out of the club, what they believed the club could do for the city, for the region, and we just embraced it, brought them along on the journey with us. And they just grew organically. It was incredible.
How do you think about maximising, especially that pre-match experience? Because time is money. The earlier somebody arrives at the game, they'll likely buy some merch, they might buy something to eat, get a drink, and all of that, or at least some of that, flows back to the club. So
Totally.
Guys, so a petting zoo on the weekend. You know, like how do you come up with these ideas, and how are you thinking about that effectively increasing the value of the club?
And it does, right? So strategically, we made the decision to invest in our match day, from the start. I think, to not wanting to quote Kevin Costner, but if you build it, they will come, right? Like literally, we knew that a huge section of our audience, we're only a year old, so our segmentation is pretty basic, right? We've got hardcore fans, we've got families, and then we've got main eventers. And they're our three big audience pockets. So we looked at the hardcore, we've got the port, we sort of worked out how we're going to, sort of work with them to help them grow their fandom. And then the family piece was really interesting for us. So we did a couple of things which have worked out pretty well. So one was, we pushed really hard for Saturday 5 p.m. We saw that as an opportunity for families to have a family time together, go to a family event. They could be home in time for a dinner or an early bed, whatever it needed, whatever their requirements were. And then we considered that, okay, so if you're a family of 4, it might be mum and the son, dad and the daughter, whatever that combination is, they're into the football, they're going to be keen to go, they're going to be the ones championing it at home. But what are the other 2, if they're not into it, what are they going to do? So we then looked at the D zone, and this is why Go Media was such a good choice for us, and thought, let's create a family fan zone, which will then, if they get bored watching the football, which fair enough, if they're not into it, they might do, let them go down there and play to, put things onto them, grab them, make them want to come early to be part of it. We've had carnivals, we've had a beach around over Christmas. We've got a massive slide down the hill.
I went down it.
Like you went down it
twice.
Yeah, exactly. Which, the kids do they now do back flips down it and things like that. And
they showed me up.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But the queue to get on it is there for the entire game, and it just shows that sort of that strategy of actually let's make sure it's a full family experience. It's a full family entertainment, and it's worked really well.
How do you think about that as sort of financial tiers? There's the people who come for one game as a family, that's sort of they'd pay a few $100 for all of them to go and maybe buy some merch and some dinner while they're there, all the way up to the member that keeps coming back, and you want to build a real consistent experience for them. How do you think about moving people up that value chain? Yeah,
well, I think that's, sort of the funnel is you first have to interest them, you first have to excite them, you fill that funnel up the top there, and then you attract them along to a game, right? And sort of our research shows that people need to come to 3 or 4 games before they even start considering a membership, right? So, what are you doing to get that repeat purchase back? What are the customer journeys that you're creating, or the fan journeys that you're creating around that? Again, going back to my first point of putting the fan at the heart of things, and actually thinking, how do you empower them to make the decisions and feel like that they are creating their own match day experience? So they're choosing where they seated. They know what food they want. They know what time they're going to come. They know whether they're going to bring their kids or not. This whole kind of allow them to make those decisions along the way, while sort of encouraging them to come back. And once they've made that kind of 3-match, 4-match point, you upsell them to it. The other part, I think, is premium experiences at sport in New Zealand have a long way to catch up to other countries, right? And one of the things, so the insight from us on that one was Saturday 5 p.m, it's not a Friday night where you kind of might have a hospitality suite which skews definitely male to a certain age and a kind of vibe that you want. We went in at Saturday 5 p.m, it's our experience all around families. Why not make the hospitality the same? So we've got a massive lounge called the Black Knight Club. At one end of it, we've got a kids fan zone. At the other end of it, we've got a cocktail bar. So you can go and have a kind of premium experience where you get an amazing all-inclusive, there's drinks, there's nice food, you've got good seats in the house that you're mixing with good people you can either bring along to kind of network with, or you just taking a bunch of friends because it's a good day out, and your kids can be down there playing PlayStation. There's free ice cream. There's a lolly bar.
Unreal.
It is. It's cool, right?
Oh, you're having a cocktail. Hell
yeah. And the thing was that the insight we got from it was a lot of it skewed male. A lot of guys were like, we don't want to go to Friday night hospitality because we're leaving our wives and kids at home. I'm talking old school traditional gender roles here, so you know, whatever, we can flip it the other way around too. There's a lot of women who are saying the same thing about their husbands, because
I want to go to the cocktail bar, can you look after the kids?
That's it. Like,
totally,
why don't we all go as a family? And you know, we can still do that, and our corporate partners absolutely love it. You know, and they see it, and they see the value in everyone being together. The kids have a great time, the parents do, they get to network, they get to experience that. So yeah.
What code around the world are you modelling this off? Where have you seen this be done best globally?
A lot of it is kind of what they do in Vegas at the Golden Knights. They share that with us, and we work closely with their teams across ticketing, across sponsorship, and we you know, idea share across that side. I think US sport as a whole does it really well, and then through Europe as well. You know, especially Premier League. I was in the Premier League for close to 10 years, I guess, and so seeing the evolution of that as well, and especially when stadiums get rebuilt, or they get renovated, or they build a new stadium, you see what the investment into the premium areas really is. It's really impressive.
One revenue stream we haven't talked much about is broadcasting. And if you consider other codes like rugby, especially in this country, they have been so beholden to broadcasting as being their big money maker, selling multi-million-dollar rights to their games to like a Sky TV. How are you thinking about that? And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, you've tried to intentionally deviate from that so that you rely on it less. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's not intentional. It's just matter of fact. Like the
demand not there?
The broadcast deal in the A-League, right? Like today, the current one, which expires at the end of next season, is dreadful. Like, it's a terrible deal. It's the broadcast value comes out of Australia, bigger market, bigger broadcast deal, and the deal that they have there is quite publicly known to be a very bad deal. So we've actually had to pivot and had to look at different revenue streams, and it's for us, it's actually, you know, it's still difficult. We will in year one, in year two lose money, but we've actually carved out a pathway to sustainability, to break even, without relying heavily across broadcast money, which is, to your point, completely different to other codes. And I think where the kind of broadcast model is going to go, it's always going to be a core revenue stream for sport, without a doubt. I think what we're seeing now is this sort of like change from your traditional Sky Sports model to the streamers coming in. You know, you kind of, you look to other countries, in like say Japan, where they have a kind of like, there's a aggregation of the streamers to come together and actually you sort of select, these are going to be my ones that I want, and I'll go after that.
Like Netflix with Mike Tyson fights.
Exactly. So I think we're in a kind of a crossover phase right now. I think in the next sort of 2, 3, possibly 5 years, we'll see a huge shift in that. I don't know how it'll impact the dollar amounts, because I think there'll definitely be a big slump that we're kind of feeling now, right? You know, you look at publicly available, you know, talk about the rugby, our deal's dreadful. Nobody in sort of rights owner land is having a great time with broadcasters right now. Where it could change, and you sort of see a little bit of this in the Premier League and US sports and stuff, is the streamers start to come in, and that competitive tension starts to go back up again, the dollar value rises again, and suddenly rights are back up at that kind of like the high level that you need them to be.
The interesting part though is that your business model is set without it, so anything that comes in is effectively froth on the top, revenue for
hopefully,
you guys.
that's the plan, Madison, that's the plan.
Let me know when those broadcasters start calling you, that'd be a fun story to cover.
Yeah.
The mainstay code in this country is rugby, but Auckland FC wanted to approach its sport differently and not make the same financial mistakes that rugby has. Grassroots rugby clubs, they are struggling so much financially. NZR, New Zealand Rugby, is now trying to help them and try and make them financially secure again. But I'm keen to know your approach to helping Grassroots survive. How did you initially come in and approach that?
Yeah, so I think grassroots sports, whatever code it is, it's really difficult to balance the books, without a doubt. You know, you're working with their main revenue streams are the bar. There might be some grants available locally, some good, some large, some not so. And then you've got your subs, right? And a big chunk of that subs goes off to the governing body as well. So putting that together, working with a team of volunteers, trying to make it all work in that sense, it's a difficult business to run, without a doubt. And so we sat down right from the start when we sort of went around and met with every club. There's the big clubs I think there's over 18 clubs which have a minimum of 1,500 plus kids playing at them, but we met every other club around the region as well, and we sort of said, look, how can we, coming in as a professional club, coming in with high profile backers, and we don't want to kind of we want to work with you, we want to create partnerships, and how can we help you? And they sort of said two things to us. So one was, don't steal our best players and then beat us 8-0 on the weekend. So we kind of worked out a strategy around that with the football guys. And the second one was around, could you help us with the revenue? We struggle, it's really hard. So what can you do? So there's a couple of things that we did. One, we made sure that we paid, we signed scholarship players. Every scholarship player that we signed, we made sure that the training compensation went back to the club, which had been a bit of a messy piece in New Zealand prior. So every club of the players that we signed 8, got 10 grand. So there's 80 grand, right? And then we said to the clubs, that's just doing what we should be doing, that's just doing the right thing. How can we actually help you with a revenue model? And we talked about every membership sold through that club, they got a rebate back on it. So then the clubs got really engaged to it. They knew we weren't going to steal their best players. They knew that we were paying them the proper compensation for any players that joined our reserves team. And we said, and they became promoters of our memberships, and they pushed it within their clubs, helped us grow our membership base. We then wrote a cheque back to the clubs, and I think by the time we hadn't even kicked a ball, before our season started, I think we'd given back, with both those scholarship players and the membership piece, close to $200,000. So we'd given back into the community before we'd even started playing. We'd tried to help on the revenue side of things, and the feedback was amazing. It kind of, for us, it gave us that true, authentic connection into grassroots clubland, and the support from the clubs has been fantastic moving forward.
Investment also with experience
exactly.
in the game. That's not always the case. If you consider Silver Lake
Sure.
purchasing New Zealand Rugby, what's your take on just private equity, just money flowing at these things, perhaps with a lack of experience? Do you think that can not always be positive?
I think there's a lot of learnings out there. There's a lot of if sort of power of kind of retrospective thinking with this one is that the Silver Lake investment values the All Blacks at a great number, was a really good idea. They did the same thing with the A-League too, and they came in. And how they invested the money is probably it's been questioned, and rightly so. And I think there is probably that kind of lack of actual sports business experience, knowing and understanding what they do. They've probably come in and sort of tried to implement things. Well, we know that they've implemented things that haven't worked across both codes, and I think that is a huge learning. If that gets fixed and moved forward, there's no problem with having private equity makes things happen, right? So yeah.
Should we talk about players?
Let's do that.
Players are the product. How has the AFC approached scouting and transferring of players, and also of coaches to help build out your success?
The A-League model is you're allowed 5 foreign spots, and then everybody else has to be either a Kiwi or an Aussie. For us, it was really important right from the start. We're a team based in New Zealand to have New Zealand players. And that works out well for us with our actual longer term vision. So we want to create talent pathways here where the product cost, as in the player's salary and the cost of bringing the player through our system, is relatively low compared to the potential transfers that we can make on the global markets, right? So if you look at, and when we talk about global markets, we talk about leagues in Europe, we talk about leagues in Asia, we talk about leagues in with MLS in America, and then now, of late, the last couple of seasons, the Saudi League and a couple of others in the Middle East. So if you can actually bring a young player through your pathways, invest maybe 300, 400, 500k on them, whatever it may be, and then sell them for 4 or 5x that into another market, it's a great business, right? There's no club-to-club domestic transfer system in the A-League, so we couldn't sell a player to Sydney FC.
Should there be?
It's definitely been questioned and debated and talked about. I think there should be. I think there's a lot of things that you've got to work. When there's a salary capped environment, there's a few other things you have to consider. But for us, we're in quite a good position where Kiwi players in Australia are considered to be a visa player, but Australian players in New Zealand just come into the slot, and that's important because you only allow 5 visa players, right? So we can get the pick of the best bunch of Kiwis alongside us in Wellington. They play with us, and we still have 5 visa spots to choose from. And then you look at, okay, who are the visa players that we're going to bring in who could potentially have they're either going to, we want them to be incredible leaders on the dressing room and the pitch, bring a bit of star power down here to get bums on the seats, and just bring a level of quality and professionalism that the other players around them can learn from. And so we've been incredibly fortunate with our captain, Haruki, who's been to multiple World Cups, has been to Olympics, incredible footballer, had an amazing career, played through Europe, and just a good human being and a good leader. So he's been a superstar signing for us in terms of one of the visa spots. And then we've had a real South American feel with our other ones. They've got passion, they play good football, they play exciting, attacking football that we want to play. So strategically we've chosen this sort of like base of Kiwi players. We brought in a couple of Aussies who know how to play in the A-League, win the A-League, can show that kind of like grit and determination that you need to be competitive down here. And then this bit of like sort of talent and flair that's going to bring the fans in and get people kind of behind us.
I wanted to talk to you about that star power element. And I bring up the NBA here because if you look what they've allowed their athletes to do, not just in athlete development, but in personal development.
Yeah.
They've allowed them to really build their profiles, to become stars, which has also allowed them to personally accumulate more wealth outside of their athleticism, outside of the sport that they play, through enormous sponsorship deals. How are you approaching that and effectively being a talent development agency and helping these players build out themselves personally?
Yeah, I think it's you've really got to walk towards that, right? Because if you don't, like in the world of kind of personal brand, content creation, young audiences who do tend to like. There's now where it used to be back in the day when there's like you followed your team, it was generational. Now you've got this sort of like, you've got a segment of your audience, skew massively younger, who are passionate about the players and or the style of football that you play. So if you play good football and you've got the star players, they'll follow you and they'll support you. There's not that kind of loyalty of, I'm an Everton fan, I'll always be an Everton fan my whole life, or I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm a Bayern Munich fan, whatever it may be. It's now, I'm a fan of this player, that player.
Ronaldo,
Messi, exactly. It's the 2 biggest, arguably sports people in the world. And so they follow that player. You need to kind of encourage that within your environment. There has to be some guardrails. You need to be protective of your commercial partners who are paying significant money to come in and support the club. But you need to encourage it at the same time, and you need to help. When a player grows their brands, they're effectively growing yours as well. Interesting.
So you're for that?
100%. Yeah. It's where sport is moving to, and I think the kind of if you don't embrace it now, you're going to be left behind. And you look at other codes who are probably a little bit more restrictive, and you they give off a sense of less access between players and fans, which I think is I think for us one of our fundamentals is when I talked about the player and the fan as the 2 core parts of your club. If you can connect those at any occasion, it's going to strengthen that bond, that emotional connection between fan and player, fan and club. It's going to grow, right? That's what you want to do. If you separate them, your brand's going to be in trouble.
Obviously, throughout that reinvestment, the value creation is built up within the club, but that value is only realised if you sell. Correct. And one sport that has done this obviously incredibly well is the UFC, right?
Yep.
The Fertitta brothers and Dana White bought it for $2 million and then sold it to Endeavour Live and Ari Emanuel for $4 billion USD.
Yep.
Now private equity is involved and it's just kept on growing.
Yep.
What's your long-term intention here for the AFC? And it may be too early to ask this question, but is the plan to just continually break even, make enough money, and then have a few big hits on talent transfers? Or is the intention to eventually sell?
certainly can't speak for the ownership group, and I do think it's too early to tell here, but I do, just generally speaking about sports, you've nailed it, right? Like, you kind of heavy capital up front, you have to continue to reinvest in it. Nobody makes money coming into football clubs, but you can on the way out, right? So when that enterprise value rises to the level where you think you might want to move, you kind of like some of the most valuable sports clubs in the world are football clubs. You United, your Real Madrids of the world. I think here in New Zealand and Australia, I think the league itself needs to grow considerably before any of the owners are considering a sell to recoup their investment. But you do see a lot of clubs kind of moving, whether it's new investors coming in or shifting around, and there was quite the signs are definitely pretty positive. There was Tony Bloom from Brighton has just bought into Melbourne Victory in Australia and in the A-League as well. You obviously got Bill Foley with us and owner of Bournemouth. So the big players on the football scene are actually starting to look in this region, which can only be positive, right? And will only help to drive our enterprise value. Like, I remember I worked at City Football Group when we bought the licence in New York, and I think the licence for an MLS team back then was around about 100 million US. It's now 5x that. Bill, when he bought his licence at Vegas for the ice hockey, it was about $500 million US licence value. It's now 4x that. So, you can actually over time, walk away with quite a nice payday, but you have to be committed to kind of continue to kind of invest in and grow the business. And us, our ambition isn't just to break even and just scratch around there. We want this club to make money, and there are, to your point, we need to do this without being reliant on broadcast. What are the different levers that we can pull? What's unique to our sport that we can help grow our revenue with as well? Obviously the player transfer piece is massive. It's massive for us. I think there's so much talent down here. There's pathways that we're creating, and we can genuinely, there's only us and Melbourne City within the group, I mean, Tony Bloom into Victory now, but who can genuinely offer a pathway into Europe and say, look, we've got multiple clubs within our group. And it works two ways. We can attract local talent in that sense, and you can also attract foreign talent to come down who go, actually, you know what, I didn't get the deal I wanted in Europe this time around. I can go down and play in Auckland. They are connected into the big European leagues. I could get back in through that way. So it's sort of the world of player transfers works in many mysterious ways.
With the way things are going for AFC, even just after one very successful season, when are you expecting to break even and then be profitable? What does that path look like?
Great question.
Like this year, or do we need a couple more seasons?
This year, I think the Bill's sort of said to me, and he sort of said publicly as well, is any good owner expects that year 1 and year 2 is going to probably be a loss leader. Year 3 we'd like to start to be on break even.
Then pressure's on.
It is.
Does that make you like New Zealand's Dana White?
Let's not get carried away, Madison.
Thank you so much again. This has been so much fun.
Cool.
I really appreciate it.
No, likewise.
Thanks for watching Markets with Madison. If you enjoyed this interview, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. I do all of the research for these episodes myself, so your support means a lot. I always love to hear your feedback and ideas, so please drop any thoughts in the comments below. Now go put your money to work.